euphoric here based on the price of Bitcoin, which is warranted. It's up holding solid above $111,000. But I just wanted to remind everybody of the volatility of Bitcoin, since I feel like, my job is to be your personal Sherpa to the top of the Mount Everest of Bitcoin, which let's call that $1 million. And that's not going to happen soon. I don't know, 5 years, 8 years. I don't know. It'll, what I always tell people is I think it'll go up to between $500,000 and $1 million a coin in the next 5 to 10 years. So, I think we have a good shot of being $1 million per coin by 2030, but I don't know. Maybe it takes longer than that. Who knows? But here is my own journey of the ups and downs of Bitcoin. And I want you to hear this because I want you to make sure that the amount of Bitcoin you own is an amount that your stomach can handle. Right now, with Bitcoin at all-time highs, there's not a single person in the entire world who has ever bought Bitcoin that is down on their investment right now. Everyone's up. That means everybody who has not sold while it's down is up right now, which means if you can't handle the roller coaster, you can get off it right now and get more for your ticket than what you paid. You can literally do that anywhere in the world right now because Bitcoin is setting new record highs every few hours for the last 2 days. Okay, so here's my journey. So I bought my initial Bitcoin. So in 2017, the price spiked up to $19,000, which of course caught my attention. It caught everybody's attention. There's a ton of people in the class of 2017 because, you pay attention when something does that. It had rocketed from like $1,200 to like $19,000 in a year. So that gets everybody's attention. I had certainly heard of Bitcoin before that. It's just, I didn't have time to research it. I didn't have time to study, too much going on. I assume the market will shake out and some other technology will win, which of course is not the case with Bitcoin for all of the reasons I've covered on numerous other videos. But anyway, I did what everybody does, which is you try to ignore the noise in life so you can focus on the signal and not the noise. Well, Bitcoin had been the signal all along since I first heard about it in 2014, but I didn't get around to buying any until 2017. So the price spiked up to $19,000, then it started coming back down. I tried to make a purchase at about $15,000 per coin, but thankfully my bank rejected it and returned the money, which means by the time it actually went through on a second attempt, the Bitcoin was down to $12,000. Then I bought some additional Bitcoin at about $9,000. And ultimately, the Bitcoin I bought in 2017 and 2018 had an average price of about $9,000. So I am up more than 1,000% on all of that Bitcoin in total that I bought in 2017 and 2018. But it was not a huge amount of Bitcoin. It was just, it was an amount that enough to matter, but not enough to really be sort of game changing. Because again, I was new to it all. Then I got super distracted. But in the process of being super distracted, I had decided that if Bitcoin dropped, I was going to buy more. If it dropped to half my current average price at the time, which was $9,000, meaning if the price of Bitcoin dropped to $4,500, I was going to buy significantly more Bitcoin. Of course, I did not. The price did drop. I saw the price drop. But when the price dropped, of course, I chickened out because that's what happens whenever you wait to buy more Bitcoin later, is when the price actually does drop, people chicken out and they don't actually buy the Bitcoin they thought they were going to buy. Same thing happened to me. So I did not buy the Bitcoin at $4,500 that I said I was going to buy. But I held what I had, which is important. It's important to understand that I had Bitcoin that I had bought at $9,000, $11,000, $12,000. The cheapest Bitcoin I ever bought during that time period was for $6,400, which just, I guess, happened to be a lucky purchase in 2018 sometime. But the average price, again, when you factored in the $12,000 Bitcoin and the $6,400 Bitcoin, came to an average of about $9,000. But I did not buy the additional Bitcoin that I was planning to when the price dropped. But most importantly, I did not sell any of the Bitcoin I bought in 2017 and 2018. So even though the price went down to $3,200 at one point, and on paper, I had lost almost 2/3 of my investment in Bitcoin. Now, of course, I should have bought a lot more at $4,500 and I would have been, way better off, but I didn't. And it is the same story. Everyone's story is the same. They wish they had bought Bitcoin the first time they heard about it. They wish they had bought a lot more than they ultimately did. And they wish they had actually followed through on their thought process that they were going to buy more if it was ever significantly cheaper. And nobody buys Bitcoin when they first hear about it. It's always 2 or 3 years later, typically. Nobody buys as much as they should have. And then nobody buys the additional amount they thought they were going to buy when the price drops. It's just human nature. My story is almost verbatim everybody's story that's been in Bitcoin a good while. So anyway, the price did drop. I did not buy more. But I still had that Bitcoin with an average price of $9,000, and I held on to it. And importantly, I held on to it even though the price crashed all the way down to $3,200. I did not sell. So to my credit, I did not sell. Now, not to my credit, I did not buy the additional Bitcoin I thought I was going to buy, or that I had considered buying, or that I had told myself I was going to buy, but I didn't sell. Okay, so then the price recovers in 2020 and goes back above the price I paid for it. At this point, I'm like, wow, okay, I've been super distracted. 2018, 2019, 2020, super distracted with politics, public policy. I was deeply involved in a, massive political race. I mean, it was just a gazillion things were going on. So I didn't have time to focus on anything else. And so here we go. It's 2020. It passes my initial price. And I'm like, you know what? I've got to pay attention to this. I really need to pay attention to this because Bitcoin just seems to always keep coming back. And I've owned this Bitcoin in 2017 and 2018. I should have bought a lot more. I didn't. Should I buy more now? Well, then the price just kept going up and up and up in 2020 and 2021. And so ultimately I did buy additional Bitcoin. I bought some, I can't remember if it was 20 or if it was early 2021, but regardless, at various points, I did buy more Bitcoin on the way up. The price ultimately peaked at $64,000 and then started coming back down. It ultimately flash crashed. So ultimately on its way down as it, peaked at 64, marched down to the 50s. And then by the time it was, really sort of the price was coming down in the middle of 2021. The price in the month preceding up to my largest single purchase had dropped to 54,000. I think it was 59,500, and then it had dropped all the way to a flash crash of $30,000. It was up at like 40-something thousand dollars. Flash crashed to $30,000, recovered to $42,000, and this is on one day. On one day, it went from either the high 30s or the low 30s, something like that. Crashed down to $30,000, then went back to $43,000, and then had fallen back to $38,300 by the time I actually made the largest single purchase that I made. And I posted the details of this in written form right before I recorded this video. Okay, so here I am. I finally made a big additional purchase of Bitcoin, in addition to a bunch of smaller purchases above that price and some smaller purchases below that price, but the largest single one-time single transaction Bitcoin purchase I made at that one time for $38,300. Okay, so what happened next? Well, the price a few weeks later crashed. If you want to call it a crash, it basically just marched slowly down to less than $30,000 very briefly, making me think, well, dang it. I thought I had missed a flash crash that I'd never see again, but it stopped at $30,000. Now it marched down to just under $30,000. And had I waited, obviously I would have been able to buy more Bitcoin for less. But again, that's the same story of everybody's journey is, you can't time the market. It just is what it is. So then after dipping just below $30,000, Bitcoin marched up by the end of 2021 up to $69,000 before subsequently, as the result of a cascade of human stupidity that had nothing to do with Bitcoin, a cascade of human stupidity dragged the price from $69,000. It started marching down. People who were leveraged up had borrowed a bunch of money to buy Bitcoin, could not make their, debt payments. They started puking Bitcoin all over the market, having to force sell Bitcoin they didn't want to sell to meet borrowed money payments and all that sort of stuff. Anyway, and then FTX blew up because Sam Bankman-Fried defrauded a bunch of people out of like $10 billion or whatever it was. Anyway, so Bitcoin marched all the way down to $15,500. And again, I was holding on to $38,300 Bitcoin. Even watching the price of that $38,000 Bitcoin march all the way to below 16,000. Now I was buying all the way down. I mean, at this point, my conviction was high enough that I think when this whole process started in 2021, I had, 40% of my net worth, 40% of my net worth in Bitcoin, maybe, I'm guessing. And by the end of that period, marching through 2021 and then 2022, I had ratcheted that up to 60% of my net worth. So literally 20% of every dollar I had to my name got dumped into the market as it marched down in 2022. and stayed low in early 2023. Again, these are like gut-wrenching moves here. But I was buying all the way down, not with the same magnitude of the purchase I did at 38,300, because I just didn't have the capital to do a one-time purchase of that magnitude. But I was scrapping together everything I could and finding new sources of capital and freeing up money I didn't think I could free up. I mean, I was just doing everything I could to buy Bitcoin. So I did buy quite as much as I could below 20,000, including a fair amount below 17,000 in 2022. And early 2023. And then when the price started marching back up and the banks blew up in March of 2023, and I saw that the banks, everybody freaked out, stock market went down, Bitcoin went up, then I took my exposure to Bitcoin from 60% up to 80%. And then this year, then I sort of slowly edged it up to 90 and then ultimately 97%. As the price kept recovering higher and higher and higher, I was buying and more because my confidence level was higher and higher and higher, including with the election last year where a more pro-Bitcoin candidate won as opposed to a less pro-Bitcoin candidate. And even though, look, Bitcoin will survive anything. Bitcoin went through the presidencies of Barack Obama and then Donald Trump and then Joe Biden and now Donald Trump. Bitcoin can survive anything. It doesn't matter. At the end of the day, Bitcoin always wins. It's still nice to have a favorable regulatory environment. That's still a tailwind instead of a headwind. It's nice to have something pushing you forward instead of blowing you back, even though Bitcoin always wins in the end. But anyway, so here we are. As it marched up to 109,000, I was sitting at 97% of my liquid net worth in Bitcoin. Then the price dipped into the 90s. And ultimately into the 80s. When it went into the 80s, I put another 2% in to take my total Bitcoin exposure to 99%. And then when it temporarily dropped into the 70s at about $78,000 per coin, I put the last 1% of my liquid assets into Bitcoin. So that puts me at a 100% Bitcoin allocation for all of my liquid assets. Now, as I've mentioned before, that does not include an emergency fund that Rachel manages that I have no legal access to and no physical access to. It's just money that she manages just so our kids still eat groceries and don't starve in case my very high risk appetite approach to things somehow doesn't work out, which I think is extremely low probability, but not impossible. Nothing's impossible, right? So anyway, but for every dollar I possibly could put in Bitcoin, I now have 100% in Bitcoin. So if the price dropped tomorrow and people were like, Joel, aren't you going to buy more Bitcoin? My answer is unless money becomes available that I don't even know existed, which did happen earlier today when I discovered $14,000 on a refund that I knew was out there, but I had totally forgotten about. That showed up today. So as soon as I can suck that out of Trustmark and into Coinbase and buy $14,000 of Bitcoin on Coinbase Advanced, which I will do literally the moment it shows up in Trustmark, unless stuff like that happens that gives me money I wasn't expecting or didn't know was coming, I can't buy more Bitcoin. I don't have any more US dollars to buy Bitcoin. All of my expenses are paid for with Bitcoin on the Coinbase debit card or with the payment on my 2026 Tesla Model Y. I liquidate the Bitcoin and move the money to bank draft at Trustmark basically a day or two before the payment is due because River and Coinbase, which are the primary two platforms I use, do not have bill pay yet. And I tried to set it up on Strike with bill pay, but Trustmark requires a voided check in order to set up bill pay. And the way Strike is set up, you can't get a voided check because there's no checking account. It's just bank draft. So as soon as Coinbase or River rolls out bill pay, then I'll put my 2026 Tesla Model Y payment on there. And I say the year and the model because if you're in the mood to buy a Tesla, the best one is the Model Y, and specifically the 2026. They upgraded everything in 2026, and the 2026 model is way better than 2025 or before. So that's why I throw in the year and the model, because all Teslas are not the same. If you want the latest and greatest, you got to buy a Tesla Model 3 that's 2024 or newer, or a Tesla Model Y 2026 or newer. The larger one is the Model Y. I'm tall, I'm 6'4", and so I bought the 2026 Tesla Model Y. But if you don't need the extra sort of vertical height and extra just general space, you can get away with the Tesla Model 3, which is cheaper. And as long as you buy the 2024 or newer, you're getting the latest. But anyway, all that to say, Bitcoin's volatile. It will reward you handsomely if you can handle the ups and downs. A lot of people can't, which means they buy it when it's high because it feels euphoric. It feels great. It's going up. And then when it goes down, they puke their Bitcoin all over the market. And when you're puking your Bitcoin all over the market, it makes the price fall farther, which is good for people like me who want to buy it as cheap as you're willing to sell it to me. But it is bad for you because you end up buying $111,000 Bitcoin and then selling it at, I don't know, $75,000 or $95,000 or whatever's the lowest price that you just can't take it anymore. You just can't stand it. And so you throw your Bitcoin up and you just can't keep it down. So if your stomach cannot keep your food down, don't ride the roller coaster. If your stomach cannot keep your Bitcoin down, don't put it on your assets because you're going to end up losing if your stomach can't handle it. If your stomach can handle it, it'll reward you handsomely long term, which has been my case. My average cost probably for all the Bitcoin I bought is somewhere in the ballpark of $30,000. Now, obviously, I have a bunch of Bitcoin that's, an average price, not a bunch, but I have some that's an average price of $9,000. That's up more than 1,000%. But it's more than 1,200%, 1,200%. So I've got that original $9,000 Bitcoin that's up 1,200%. But obviously that has to be averaged in with that single largest purchase I made at $38,300 and a bunch of purchases at prices higher than that and lower than that. So if you average it all out, I'm guessing my average purchase price is low 30,000s, maybe 30,000, maybe probably low $30,000, which is, again, that means of all the money I've ever put in Bitcoin, which is now 100% of my net worth, it means my liquid net worth is triple what it would otherwise be. Now, I've done other videos about why I own a lot less Bitcoin than I could have owned in the past, and primarily that was because I spent the vast majority of the money I had between 2015 and 2021 on politics and public policy. I spent the majority of the money that I made selling Baumgar Corporation in 2014. The majority of that money I spent in politics and public policy between 2015 and 2021. And I'm thankful I did. I wouldn't change anything, but the result was I had a lot less money to buy Bitcoin when I actually was ready to buy a lot of Bitcoin, which was 2021 and forward, when my conviction was really there to buy as much as I could possibly get. I did not have the majority of my net worth that had been spent on politics and public policy between 2015 and 2020. But for what I still had, obviously what I still had that I had not spent on many numerous efforts to change the world, I have tripled that. So it feels great to triple what was left over, even if you spent the majority of it. Anytime you spend your majority of your money on something and then you triple the meager amount that's left, well, that feels great because it's triple than what it would have been. And since, again, the average is in the low 30s, I guess it's still right at, well, it's more than tripled, I don't know. I guess at 120 it'd be quadrupled or whatever. But anyway, so let's call it tripled, maybe slightly more than tripled. But anyway, so I have a lot less Bitcoin than I would have had if I had not gone on numerous quests to change the world. So I have a lot less than I would have had if I had not done that. But I have a lot more purchasing power than I would have if I had attempted to make back a portion of the money I spent in stocks, bonds, real estate, commodities, anything else I could possibly have put money in from 2021 and forward. I don't think would have gotten anywhere close to tripling my money with as low of risk profile as Bitcoin is. Once you really understand Bitcoin, you really realize how low the risk actually is as compared to stocks, bonds, commodities, real estate, and things like that. So I continue to think Bitcoin is the best asset in the world. It has more than tripled my liquid assets and liquid net worth over the last, however many, 3-4 years, whatever it's been. And, but I want you to just understand that 100% of the world can get off the merry-go-round right now if they're feeling sick. If you're feeling sick because the volatility of Bitcoin is a little more than you can handle, you can get off the merry-go-round right now. If you can't handle it, please pare back your Bitcoin holdings to something where you can handle anything. If your stomach can handle anything, I believe Bitcoin will reward you handsomely in the future. If you can't, you will be puking your Bitcoin all over the marketplace at the worst possible time and at the lowest possible prices. And many people will love you for it because you're selling them your cheap Bitcoin, but you will not love yourself for it. So make sure you can handle it. We're at record highs right now as I record this. We are at record highs above $111,000. And hold only the Bitcoin you know that you can handle, that you're not going to retch up in the marketplace in a downturn. Have a great day, everyone.